My fiancé leaving me at the altar was the best moment of my life. The wedding dress cost more than most people's cars, but as I stood at the altar watching Marcus's face drain of all color, I realized it was the best investment I'd ever made. I can't do this, he whispered, loud enough for the front 3 rows to hear. His hands were shaking as he fumbled with his boutonniere, and I could see actual sweat beading on his forehead despite the church's air conditioning. Perfect. Behind me, I heard my Aunt Linda gasp. To my left, Pastor Williams cleared his throat awkwardly. 200 guests sat in stunned silence as my fiancé of 2 years began backing away from me like I was radioactive. Marcus? I kept my voice soft, confused. The picture of a bewildered bride. What's wrong, honey? But he was already turning, already running. His polished Oxford shoes echoed against the marble floor as he bolted down the aisle, past the white roses that cost $800, past his own mother who reached out desperately to stop him, past the oak doors and into the June afternoon. I counted slowly in my head. 1 Mississippi. 2 Mississippi. 3 Mississippi. The screaming started right on schedule. Marcus Chen, you're under arrest for wire fraud and embezzlement. Through the open church doors, I could see everything perfectly. Marcus had made it exactly 47 steps. I'd measured it myself last Tuesday during our rehearsal. Agent Rodriguez and Agent Kim were right where I told them they'd need to be, positioned behind the black SUV that Marcus had somehow failed to notice when he'd arrived an hour earlier. My soon-to-be ex-fiancé was face down on the concrete in his custom Tom Ford tuxedo, the one I'd paid for, just like everything else. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sarah. My maid of honor Jessica grabbed my arm. Oh my God, what's happening? Why are there FBI agents at your wedding? I turned to face our guests, 200 pairs of eyes staring at me with mixtures of shock, pity, and morbid fascination. My grandmother was fanning herself with the wedding program. Marcus's groomsmen looked like they were considering making a run for it themselves. Well, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, I guess this is as good a time as any to tell you all that the man I was about to marry has been stealing from my family's trust fund for the past 8 months. The silence that followed was deafening. He's taken approximately $127,000 so far, using our joint wedding account as a laundering front. He was planning to disappear to Costa Rica tomorrow morning with his ex-girlfriend Vanessa. I smiled at the crowd, feeling lighter than I had in months. Apparently, love makes people do crazy things. Mrs. Chen, Marcus's mother, was openly weeping now. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Through the doors, I watched Agent Rodriguez read Marcus's rights while Agent Kim searched through the briefcase Marcus had insisted on bringing to his own wedding. The briefcase I knew contained a fake passport, plane tickets for 2 to San Jose, and $15,000 in cash, my cash, that he'd withdrawn yesterday thinking I wouldn't notice until Monday. But don't worry, I continued, addressing the crowd like I was giving a presentation at work instead of standing in a $12,000 wedding dress at my own failed ceremony. The reception is still on. The bar's open, the band's been paid, and the salmon is already plated. I lifted the hem of my dress and started walking down the aisle. After all, it's not every day you get to celebrate your freedom. The reception hall at the Grandview Country Club had never hosted a celebration quite like this one. By the time I arrived, still in my wedding dress but having traded my heels for the emergency flats Jessica had stashed in her purse, half the guests were already 3 drinks deep and the gossip was flowing faster than the top-shelf whiskey. Sarah, honey, are you absolutely certain about all this? My mother appeared at my elbow, her face a mask of concern and barely concealed excitement. Mom had never liked Marcus, though she'd been too polite to say so directly. I mean, embezzlement is such a serious accusation. The FBI doesn't make arrests based on accusations, Mom. I accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter, the good stuff, Cristal, because Marcus had insisted we spare no expense for our special day. They'd been building a case for 3 weeks. I just gave them the final pieces they needed. What I didn't tell her was that those final pieces included audio recordings from my phone, copies of bank statements Marcus thought he'd hidden, and a detailed timeline of every suspicious transaction I documented since discovering the first discrepancy on May 8th. Marcus had been clever, I'd give him that. The amounts were always small enough to avoid automatic flags, $2,500 here, $4,200 there, carefully spaced out over weeks. He'd been siphoning money from the wedding account and replacing it with transfers from Dad's trust, probably thinking I was too busy with centerpieces and seating charts to notice the shell game. He'd underestimated me. Most people did. Sarah. Vanessa's voice cut through the ambient chatter like nails on a chalkboard. I turned to see Marcus's ex-girlfriend pushing through the crowd, her face flushed with anger and what looked like panic. She was supposed to be halfway to the airport by now. Interesting. Vanessa. I'm surprised to see you here. Shouldn't you be boarding a plane about now? She stopped in front of me, chest heaving. Her designer handbag, a Birkin that cost more than most people's rent, was clutched against her chest like armor. You vindictive bitch. You planned this whole thing. I planned a wedding, I said calmly. Marcus planned a heist. There's a difference. He loves me. We were going to start over, build something real together. Her voice cracked on the word real, and I almost laughed. With my father's money. Your father's been dead for 2 years. You don't even need that money. You have your job, your condo, your perfect little life. Vanessa's composure was crumbling by the second. Marcus deserved better than being trapped with someone who cares more about spreadsheets than feelings. Around us, conversations had stopped. Our audience was growing by the minute, phones discreetly held up to record what was undoubtedly going to be the most talked about wedding reception in Grandview's history. You're right about one thing, I said, setting down my champagne. My father has been dead for 2 years. 2 years and 3 months, actually. He died of pancreatic cancer, and before he went, he made me promise to protect the foundation he built. That money wasn't just sitting in some account collecting dust, Vanessa. It funds scholarships for underprivileged kids, medical research grants, and community development programs in Dad's hometown. Her face went white. So when you and Marcus decided to steal from dying children to fund your Costa Rican love nest, you picked the wrong mark. I smiled. But thank you for coming tonight. Agent Rodriguez is going to be so pleased to meet you. Vanessa's eyes darted toward the exit, but I'd already spotted Agent Kim making his way through the crowd, weaving between tables of stunned wedding guests who were getting the show of a lifetime. Going somewhere? I asked sweetly. You can't prove I knew anything about this, she hissed, but her voice wavered. I thought Marcus had his own money. He told me he was an investment banker. He told you a lot of things, apparently. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a screenshot I'd saved 3 days ago. Is this your Venmo account, by any chance? Vanessa Lux Life? Her face went ashen as I turned the screen toward her. Transaction after transaction, all from Marcus's account to hers. $800 for spa day baby, $1,200 for shopping spree thanks babe, $2,500 for Costa Rica prep, can't wait. Those were gifts, she whispered. Gifts bought with stolen money. That makes you an accessory. I tucked my phone back into the hidden pocket Jessica had insisted the seamstress add to my dress. Best maid of honor decision ever. The Costa Rica prep payment was particularly helpful, by the way. That's when the FBI knew for certain Marcus was planning to flee the country. Agent Kim appeared beside us as if materialized from thin air. Ms. Torres? I'm Agent Kim with the Financial Crimes Task Force. We'd like to ask you a few questions. Vanessa looked around desperately, as if expecting someone to rescue her. Instead, she found herself surrounded by my wedding guests, all of whom were watching this unfold with the rapt attention usually reserved for reality TV finales. This is harassment, she said, but she was already reaching for her purse. I want a lawyer. That's absolutely your right, Agent Kim replied professionally. You can call one from the station. As they escorted Vanessa out, I caught sight of my cousin David near the bar, shaking his head in amazement. Christ, Sarah, he called out. Remind me never to cross you. The crowd actually laughed at that, and I felt some of the tension in the room shift. People were starting to realize this wasn't a tragedy, it was justice served with a side of premium open bar. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced, climbing onto a chair so everyone could see me. The 6-foot train of my dress cascaded around me like something out of a fairy tale. I know this isn't exactly how you expected to spend your Saturday evening. Best wedding I've ever been to, someone shouted from the back. More laughter. Thank you, Uncle Pete, I grinned. But I want you all to know that while Marcus was busy stealing from my family's charitable foundation, he made one critical error. I paused for effect, channeling every presentation skill I'd learned in my 10-year marketing career. He assumed I was too distracted by wedding planning to notice. He thought I was just another bride-to-be, too caught up in flower arrangements and menu tastings to pay attention to our finances. My voice grew stronger. What he didn't realize is that I've been managing million-dollar advertising budgets since I was 23. I notice when someone spends $47 on coffee in a day, let alone when they're systematically draining trust fund accounts. The applause started slowly, just my Aunt Linda clapping from her table near the windows. Then Jessica joined in, then my mother, then David. Within seconds, the entire room was on their feet, cheering like I'd just delivered the State of the Union instead of explaining how I'd orchestrated my cheating fiancé's arrest at my own wedding. Now, I raised my champagne glass high, let's celebrate the fact that sometimes the trash takes itself out. The toast had barely finished when my phone buzzed with a text from Agent Rodriguez. Asterisk, we found the Costa Rica accounts. This is bigger than we thought. Can you come to the station tomorrow at 9 a.m.? Asterisk. I was still staring at the message when Jessica appeared beside me, her maid of honor duties apparently extending to post-arrest damage control. Sarah, we have a problem, she whispered urgently. Marcus's cousin Tyler is here, and he's asking a lot of questions about the trust fund. I looked across the reception hall and spotted Tyler Chin near the chocolate fountain, his phone pressed to his ear. Even from a distance, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he kept glancing toward the exit. Tyler worked at Marcus's investment firm, had worked there, anyway, until the FBI probably shut down their offices about an hour ago. What kind of questions? I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I already knew. He wanted to know if he'd discovered the other accounts yet. When I told him I didn't know what he meant, he went white as a sheet and started making phone calls. My stomach dropped. Other accounts? The FBI had assured me they'd traced all of Marcus's financial activity. We'd spent 3 weeks mapping every transaction, every transfer, every suspicious withdrawal. What had we missed? Before I could respond, Tyler ended his call and started walking toward us, his face a mask of barely controlled panic. Behind him, I noticed at least 6 other wedding guests, all Marcus's colleagues from Chen and Associates Investment Management, quietly making their way toward the exits. Sarah, Tyler's voice was tight when he reached us. I think we need to talk. Privately. I think we're past privacy, don't you? I gestured toward the reception hall, where our remaining guests were still buzzing with excitement over the evening's events. Besides, anything you want to say to me, you can say in front of Jessica. Tyler glanced around nervously, then leaned closer. Marcus wasn't working alone. The trust fund, it wasn't the only target. The champagne glass slipped from my hand, shattering against the marble floor. What do you mean? There are 12 other families. Wealthy clients who trusted the firm with estate planning, charitable foundations, inheritance management. Tyler's words came out in a rush. Marcus was the front man, but the operation was bigger. Much bigger. Jessica grabbed my arm. How much bigger? Try $2.3 million across 13 accounts over the past 14 months. The number hit me like a physical blow. I'd been so focused on protecting Dad's foundation, so proud of catching Marcus's relatively small-scale theft, that I'd missed the real crime entirely. He hadn't been stealing from me, he'd been using me as practice. Why are you telling me this? I managed to ask. Tyler's laugh was bitter. Because when the FBI raided our offices an hour ago, they found everything. Every forged document, every fake authorization, every shell company we created in the Caymans. He ran a hand through his hair. Marcus kept records of everything, the meticulous bastard. Names, amounts, transfer dates, even photos of forged signatures. We? The word came out sharper than I intended. I was supposed to disappear tonight too. There's a second plane ticket in my car right now, red-eye to Panama City. Tyler's composure finally cracked. But when I saw the FBI agents dragging Marcus away in handcuffs, I realized he'd probably made copies of everything as insurance. including evidence that would implicate me. Around us, the reception continued, but I felt like I was watching it through glass. The band played on, guests continued eating their salmon, and Uncle Pete was regaling anyone who'd listen with his theories about Marcus's criminal psychology. They had no idea that the man I'd been planning to marry was apparently part of a multi-million-dollar fraud ring. Sarah, Tyler continued urgently, there's something else. Marcus has a safety deposit box in downtown Portland. Box 247 at First National. He made me memorize the number in case of emergencies. What's in it? Backup documents, cash, and... Tyler hesitated. Photos. Compromising photos of some of the clients we targeted. Insurance, he called it, in case anyone tried to prosecute. My phone buzzed again. Agent Rodriguez, asterisk turn on Channel 12 News. Now. Asterisk. The nearest TV was in the country club's bar area, mounted above rows of top-shelf liquor that suddenly seemed like a very appealing option. Jessica and I pushed through the crowd, Tyler trailing behind us like a guilty shadow, while I fumbled with my phone to call Agent Rodriguez. Sarah, thank God, his voice crackled through the speaker. Are you somewhere you can watch the news? Getting there now. Tyler Chin just told me about. The investment firm, I know. We've been monitoring their communications since 3 p.m. This thing is massive. I could hear papers rustling in the background, voices shouting orders. But that's not why I need you to see this. The bartender, a guy named Mike who'd been refilling champagne glasses all evening, spotted us approaching and immediately grabbed the remote. You're the bride, right? The one who just had her fiancé arrested? At my nod, he shook his head admiringly. Lady, you're stone cold. I respect that. Channel 12's evening anchor, Rebecca Martinez, filled the screen mid-sentence. The arrest of investment manager Marcus Chen has unveiled what FBI sources are calling one of the largest estate fraud schemes in Oregon's history. But in a shocking twist, the woman he left at the altar today appears to have orchestrated his capture. My wedding photo flashed on screen, the one we'd taken for the engagement announcement 6 months ago. Marcus's arm around my waist, both of us smiling at the camera like we had the whole world figured out. According to federal agents, Sarah Mitchell, 28, spent 3 weeks working undercover with the FBI's Financial Crimes Task Force to gather evidence against her fiancé. Sources close to the investigation say Mitchell discovered discrepancies in her late father's charitable foundation and contacted authorities rather than confront Chen directly. Jessica grabbed my hand. Holy shit, Sarah. You're on the news. The scheme allegedly targeted high-net-worth families who used Chen and Associates for estate planning services. FBI agent Rodriguez confirmed that total damages exceed $2.3 million across multiple victims. Rebecca's voice grew more serious. But perhaps most disturbing are allegations that Chen and his associates used blackmail to silence potential whistleblowers. My blood went cold. I looked at Tyler, who had gone completely pale. What kind of blackmail? I whispered, though I was afraid I already knew. Marcus photographed confidential documents, family secrets, sometimes even staged compromising situations during client meetings. Tyler's voice was barely audible. Insurance, he called it. I guarantee that victims wouldn't report the thefts. The news cut to footage of the FBI raid on Chen and Associates' downtown offices. Federal agents carried boxes of evidence out of the sleek glass building where I'd met Marcus for lunch dozens of times, completely oblivious to what was happening 3 floors above the restaurant. This is Agent Rodriguez with a message for potential victims. The screen switched to a live press conference I'd apparently missed while dealing with Vanessa. Rodriguez stood behind a podium, looking grimly professional in his dark suit. If you or your family used Chen and Associates Investment Management for any financial services in the past 2 years, please contact our hotline immediately. You may be a victim even if you haven't noticed missing funds. A phone number flashed across the screen, 1-800-FBI-CHEN. Jesus Christ, Mike the bartender muttered. They made a whole hotline just for this case. My phone rang again, but this time it wasn't Agent Rodriguez. The caller ID showed Portland Tribune newsroom. Don't answer that, Jessica said quickly. Sarah, you realize what this means, right? You're going to be famous. The woman who caught her own fiancé stealing millions at their wedding? This is going to be everywhere by tomorrow morning. She was right. I could already see several wedding guests discreetly taking photos of me watching myself on television, still in my $12,000 wedding dress at what had become the most surreal reception in Portland's social history. Tyler, I turned to Marcus's cousin, who looked like he was actively planning his own escape route. How many other people at this wedding knew what Marcus was doing? Tyler's eyes darted around the room, landing on Marcus's remaining groomsmen, his college roommate, and at least 3 colleagues from the investment firm who were still nursing drinks at the bar. Honestly? Probably half his side of the guest list. The revelation hit me like ice water. Half of Marcus's guests, people I'd smiled at during the ceremony, people I'd shaken hands with at engagement parties, people who'd eaten dinner at my table and toasted to our beautiful future, had known he was stealing from grieving families. I need air, I said, pushing past Jessica toward the country club's terrace doors. Sarah, wait, Tyler called after me, but I was already outside, the June evening surprisingly cool against my skin. The terrace overlooked the 18th hole, usually peaceful under the string lights the club had installed for our reception. Instead, I found myself staring at 3 black SUVs parked along the cart path, their occupants clearly visible through tinted windows. More FBI. My phone rang again. This time, I answered. Ms. Mitchell, this is Agent Sarah Chen, no relation to Marcus. The voice was crisp, professional. Agent Rodriguez asked me to coordinate with you. We need to discuss tomorrow's timeline. Timeline for what? We're executing simultaneous search warrants at 7 locations tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. The safety deposit box Tyler mentioned, Marcus's apartment, the investment firm's secondary office in Lake Oswego, and 4 client homes where we suspect evidence was planted. I sank into one of the wrought iron chairs the club had arranged around cocktail tables. Evidence was planted? Financial documents, forged signatures, sometimes listening devices in home offices. Marcus was apparently very thorough in his victim selection process. Agent Chen paused. Ms. Mitchell, we need you to understand, this investigation is going to get much larger before it's over. The media attention alone. As if summoned by her words, I spotted a news van pulling into the country club's circular driveway. Channel 8 this time, their satellite dish already extending skyward. They're here, I said flatly. Who's there? The media. There's a news van in the parking lot. I watched as a reporter emerged, straightening his tie. Behind him, a cameraman was already setting up equipment. How did they find me so fast? Social media, probably. Half your wedding guests have been posting photos and videos for the past 2 hours. Agent Chen's tone grew more urgent. Ms. Mitchell, I strongly recommend you don't speak to any reporters tonight. Anything you say could compromise the investigation. Through the terrace doors, I could see Jessica frantically waving at me. Behind her, Tyler was in heated conversation with 2 men I recognized as Marcus's groomsmen, his brother David and his college roommate Pete. Even from a distance, their body language screamed panic. Agent Chen, I think Marcus's accomplices are about to run. We have surveillance on all known associates. No one's leaving Portland tonight without our knowledge. What about the clients? The families he stole from, do they know yet? We're conducting notifications starting at 8 p.m. tonight. The Hendersons, the Walsh Estate, the Morrison Family Trust. She rattled off names I didn't recognize. 12 families besides yours, some of whom lost their children's college funds, medical treatment savings, even money set aside for elderly care. My chest tightened. I'd been so focused on protecting Dad's foundation that I hadn't fully processed what Marcus and his team had really done. These weren't just numbers on bank statements, they were families' futures, stolen to fund Costa Rican vacation homes and designer handbags. Ms. Mitchell? Are you still there? I'm here. I stood up, smoothing down my wedding dress one more time. Agent Chen, I want to help with the notifications. These families deserve to hear from someone who understands what they're going through. That's actually not a bad idea. Some of them might be more willing to cooperate with someone who was victimized too. I could hear typing in the background. Can you be at the field office at 7 a.m. tomorrow? We'll start with the Henderson family. They lost $180,000 from their daughter's special needs trust. $180,000. Marcus had stolen more from one family than most people made in 3 years. I'll be there, I said, watching as the Channel 8 reporter approached the terrace doors. But first, I need to deal with the media circus at my wedding reception. The Channel 8 reporter reached the terrace doors just as my phone buzzed with yet another call. This time, the caller ID made my stomach drop. Mom. Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell, what in God's name is happening? Mom's voice was shrill even through the phone speaker. I just got home and there are news vans parked outside my house. Reporters are asking me about Marcus and money laundering and... Mom, slow down. Are you safe? Are you inside? I'm locked in my bathroom like some kind of criminal, she hissed. Mrs. Patterson from next door called to tell me I'm trending on Twitter. Twitter, Sarah. I don't even know what that means, but apparently there's a video of you toasting your own fiancé's arrest that has 40,000 views. Through the terrace doors, I could see Jessica holding court near the chocolate fountain, gesturing wildly as she recounted the evening's events to a growing crowd. Someone had apparently convinced the band to keep playing, because Can't Help Myself by the Four Tops was providing a surreal soundtrack to what had become the most expensive therapy session in Portland history. Ms. Mitchell? The Channel 8 reporter had somehow made it past country club security. He was younger than he'd looked from a distance, probably fresh out of journalism school and thinking he'd stumbled onto his career-making story. I'm Derek Morrison with Channel 8 News. Could I get a statement about your role in today's FBI operation? No comment, I said automatically, but something about his last name nagged at me. Morrison. Agent Chen had mentioned a Morrison family trust. Derek Morrison, I repeated slowly. Are you related to the Morrison family that banks with Chen and Associates? His professional smile faltered. That's my family, actually. My grandparents. When I heard about the arrests on the police scanner, I recognized the investment firm name. His voice cracked slightly. My grandmother's Alzheimer's treatment fund, is it really gone? The phone was still pressed to my ear, Mom demanding answers I didn't have yet, while a reporter whose family had been victimized by my ex-fiancé stood 3 feet away asking me questions I wasn't legally allowed to answer. I can't discuss specifics, I said carefully, but you should call the FBI hotline. Agent Chen is coordinating victim notifications. Sarah. Mom's voice squeaked from the phone. Are you talking to reporters? Agent Rodriguez specifically said. I heard, I cut her off. Mom, pack a bag and go stay with Aunt Linda tonight. The media attention is going to get worse before it gets better. Derek was scribbling notes in a small pad, his reporter instincts apparently warring with his personal investment in the story. Ms. Mitchell, sources say you worked undercover with federal agents for 3 weeks. Can you confirm whether the stolen funds have been recovered? Before I could answer, Jessica burst through the terrace doors, her maid of honor dress slightly disheveled and her carefully styled hair coming loose from its pins. Sarah, we have a major problem. Marcus's brother David just confessed to Uncle Pete that there's a second safety deposit box. In Marcus's real name, not the fake identity Tyler mentioned. My blood ran cold. What's in the second box? Backup hard drives. Financial records going back 4 years, not just the past 14 months. Jessica glanced nervously at Derek, who was openly eavesdropping now. David thinks Marcus has been running smaller scams since college. 4 years. That meant Marcus had been stealing from people before we even met, throughout our entire relationship, probably using information he gathered from me about Dad's foundation to perfect his methods. I need to call Agent Rodriguez, I said, but Derek stepped closer. Wait, please. My grandmother is 83 years old. The treatment fund was everything we had saved for her care. His professional composure cracked completely. If there are backup records, if there's a chance we can recover the money. Derek Morrison, Channel 8 News? Agent Kim's voice cut through the evening air. I turned to see him approaching from the parking lot, his FBI credentials clearly visible. Behind him, 2 more agents I didn't recognize were setting up what looked like a mobile command center near the news van. Agent Kim, I said, relief flooding through me. Perfect timing. Ms. Mitchell, we need you to come with us. There's been a development. His expression was grim. We just arrested Marcus's ex-business partner, Jonathan Hayes, at PDX Airport. He was attempting to board a flight to Dubai with $340,000 in cash and hard drives containing financial records dating back to 2019. Derek's notepad fell from his hands. 2019? But that means... It means this conspiracy is significantly larger than we initially believed, Agent Kim confirmed. Mr. Morrison, I understand your family may be affected. Agent Chen will be contacting you within the hour. My phone, which had gone mercifully quiet during Mom's bathroom hideout, suddenly exploded with notifications. Text messages, missed calls, social media alerts, and news app updates streamed across the screen faster than I could process them. Jessica peered over my shoulder. Shit, Sarah. Hashtag wedding justice is trending nationally. Agent Kim nodded grimly. Which is exactly why we need to move you to a secure location tonight. This story is about to go international. The secure location turned out to be a Hampton Inn 20 miles outside Portland, the kind of generic business hotel where FBI agents apparently stashed witnesses when their wedding receptions became crime scenes. I was still in my wedding dress at 11 p.m., sitting on a polyester bedspread while Agent Rodriguez paced between the window and the mini fridge. The Jonathan Hayes arrest changes everything, he said for the third time in 10 minutes. The hard drives he was carrying contained client files dating back to Marcus's sophomore year at Portland State. We're talking about a 7-year operation, Sarah. 7 years. I did the math in my head. Marcus and I had been together for 2 years, engaged for 8 months. He'd been perfecting his craft for 5 years before he even met me. How many victims total? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. Agent Rodriguez consulted his tablet. Preliminary count shows 43 families across Oregon, Washington, and Northern California. Total damages. He paused. We're looking at somewhere north of $8 million. The number hung in the air like a physical presence. $8 million stolen from families who trusted their financial advisor, who believed they were securing their futures instead of funding a criminal enterprise. My phone buzzed with another call, the 14th in the past hour. This time it was my boss, Catherine Hendricks, CEO of a marketing firm where I'd worked for 6 years. I should take this, I told Agent Rodriguez, who nodded and stepped onto the hotel balcony. Sarah, honey, are you okay? Catherine's voice was tight with worry. I've been fielding calls from reporters for the past 2 hours. They want to know about your employment, your relationship with Marcus, whether you ever had access to client financial information at our firm. My stomach dropped. Our clients? Catherine, please tell me Marcus didn't. I don't think so, but Sarah, 3 of our biggest accounts used Chen and Associates for their personal estate planning. The Yamamoto Group, Westfield Properties, and Morrison Construction. Catherine's words came faster now. If Marcus had access to their financial profiles through you, if he used information from our client database to target them. Morrison Construction. Derek Morrison's family business. Catherine, I never shared client information with Marcus. Ever. My voice was steadier than I felt. But he did know which clients I worked with. He knew their names, their company sizes, their approximate revenues. That might be enough. Sarah, I hate to do this to you right now, but I'm putting you on administrative leave effective immediately. With pay, she added quickly. It's just until we can determine the extent of any potential liability. Administrative leave. The professional equivalent of being sent to your room while the adults figured out how much trouble you were in. I understand, I said, because what else could I say? There's something else. The FBI wants to interview our entire client services team tomorrow morning. They think Marcus might have had inside information about family structures, inheritance timelines, even details about when clients were most vulnerable to financial manipulation. After Catherine hung up, I sat staring at the hotel room's beige walls, trying to process the magnitude of what Marcus had done. He hadn't just stolen money, he'd weaponized my career, my relationships, my trust. Agent Rodriguez knocked on the balcony door, his expression even more serious than before. Sarah, we need to talk. Jonathan Hayes is cooperating, and what he's telling us. He sat down heavily in the room's single chair. Marcus kept detailed profiles on every mark, including personality assessments, family dynamics, even psychological vulnerabilities. What kind of vulnerabilities? Recent deaths, divorce proceedings, medical crises, addiction problems in the family. Rodriguez pulled out a thick folder. He had a file on you that's 37 pages long, Sarah. Dating back to your father's cancer diagnosis. The room seemed to tilt sideways. Marcus had been studying me for years, documenting my weaknesses, planning how to exploit my grief and my inheritance long before he'd ever proposed. I want to see it, I said quietly. Sarah, I don't think. I want to see the file. Agent Rodriguez hesitated, then slid the folder across the bed. Page 12 is particularly difficult. I opened to page 12 and immediately understood his warning. Sarah Mitchell, Psychological Profile Update 03/15/2023. Asterisk subject remains unaware of financial discrepancies. Grief over father's death makes her avoid detailed review of trust fund statements. Increased dependency on emotional support creates opportunity for manipulation. Recommend accelerating timeline for Costa Rica extraction asterisk. Asterisk note, subject's marketing background makes her dangerous if she discovers operation. Suggest maintaining high stress through wedding planning to prevent detailed financial scrutiny asterisk. Asterisk personal vulnerabilities, fear of abandonment, perfectionist tendencies, guilt over father's death. Can be managed through intermittent emotional withdrawal and criticism of wedding decisions asterisk. Marcus hadn't just been stealing from me. He'd been conducting psychological warfare, deliberately manipulating my emotions to keep me distracted while he looted my family's legacy. My phone rang again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. Don't answer, Agent Rodriguez warned, but I was already swiping to accept the call. Ms. Mitchell? This is Patricia Walsh from the Walsh Family Foundation. I believe your fiancé stole from us too. The Walsh Family Foundation. I recognized the name from Agent Chen's list, but hearing it from an actual victim made my chest tighten with guilt I knew was irrational but felt anyway. Mrs. Walsh, I'm so sorry. Agent Chen mentioned your family. $230,000, she interrupted, her voice hollow. My husband died in a car accident 8 months ago, and I trusted Marcus to help me set up college funds for my twin daughters. He said the investments were performing beautifully, even showed me fabricated statements with steady growth. I closed my eyes, seeing Marcus's earnest face as he'd explained investment strategies at dinner parties, sounding so knowledgeable, so trustworthy. He'd been practicing on other people's devastation. Mrs. Walsh, the FBI is working to recover. The money's gone, isn't it? Her laugh was bitter. My girls are supposed to start at Oregon State in the fall. I've already signed the housing contracts, bought their textbooks. How do I tell 17-year-old twins that their college fund was stolen by their mother's financial advisor? Agent Rodriguez was making sharp-cutting motions across his throat, clearly wanting me to end the call, but I couldn't hang up on this woman whose life Marcus had destroyed while he was kissing me goodnight. Mrs. Walsh, there might be recovered assets. The FBI arrested Marcus's partner tonight with hundreds of thousands in cash. Patricia? A younger voice came through the phone speaker. Mom, who are you talking to? Why are you crying? My heart shattered as I heard Mrs. Walsh muffle the phone. Go back to bed, sweetheart. Mommy's just. I'll be up in a minute. When she returned, her voice was steadier but edged with steel. Ms. Mitchell, I saw the news coverage. They're painting you as some kind of hero for catching your fiancé, but I need you to understand something. While you were planning your $12,000 wedding dress and your crystal champagne toasts, my daughters were planning their futures on money that was being stolen from them daily. The accusation hit harder than any physical blow. She was right. While I'd been obsessing over centerpieces and seating charts, real families were losing everything. You're absolutely right, I said quietly. Mrs. Walsh, I know this doesn't fix anything, but I want to help. The trust fund Marcus stole from? It's my father's charitable foundation. Whatever we recover, I want to make sure your daughter's education is covered first. Silence stretched across the line. Agent Rodriguez was shaking his head frantically, probably imagining the legal complications of promising restitution we couldn't guarantee. Why would you do that? Mrs. Walsh asked finally. Because Marcus used my grief to perfect his methods on your family. Because I was so wrapped up in my own loss that I didn't see the pattern soon enough. My voice cracked. Because your daughter shouldn't pay for my blindness. Ms. Mitchell, Agent Rodriguez whispered urgently, you can't make financial commitments during an active investigation. But Mrs. Walsh had heard him. There's an FBI agent with you, isn't there? This call is probably being recorded. Yes, I admitted. Good. I want it on record that the Mitchell Foundation committed to covering educational expenses for Emma and Sophie Walsh. Her voice grew stronger. Agent Rodriguez, I assume that you breathing heavily in the background, you'll make sure she follows through on that promise. After Mrs. Walsh hung up, Agent Rodriguez stared at me like I'd just set myself on fire. Sarah, you can't promise victims financial compensation. The legal ramifications alone. I don't care about legal ramifications, I snapped. That woman's husband died 8 months ago, and Marcus systematically stole her children's futures while he was planning our honeymoon. If I have to liquidate every asset I own to make this right, that's what I'll do. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, this is Emma Walsh. My mom is crying happy tears for the first time since Dad died. Thank you. Asterisk. Before I could respond, Agent Rodriguez's radio crackled to life. All units, we have a situation at the Chen and Associates building. Suspects attempted to return to the premises. 3 in custody, 1 still outstanding. Outstanding suspect? Rodriguez grabbed his radio. Description? Vanessa Torres. Last seen fleeing the scene with a laptop bag. License plate Alpha Charlie 7984, blue BMW sedan. Vanessa was running again, but this time she'd apparently decided she needed something from Marcus's office badly enough to risk approaching a crime scene surrounded by federal agents. What could be in that building that she'd risk arrest to get? I asked. Agent Rodriguez was already pulling on his jacket. Sarah, I need you to stay here tonight. Don't leave this room, don't answer any more calls, and definitely don't make any more financial promises to victims. Where are you going? To find out what Vanessa Torres thought was worth her freedom. The hotel room felt smaller after Agent Rodriguez left, like the beige walls were slowly closing in. I'd changed out of my wedding dress finally. Jessica had somehow managed to pack an overnight bag before the FBI whisked me away, but I could still smell the orange blossoms from my bouquet on my skin. My phone had been mercifully quiet for 20 minutes when it buzzed with a call from Jessica. Sarah, thank God you answered. I'm still at the country club helping your mom deal with the media circus, but something weird just happened. Jessica's voice was tight with anxiety. A woman showed up claiming to be Marcus's sister. Asian, about 30, really well-dressed. But here's the thing, Marcus doesn't have a sister. I sat up straighter on the hotel bed. What did she want? She said she needed to speak with you urgently about family financial obligations. When I told her you weren't available, she got really pushy. Started asking specific questions about whether you'd found Marcus's backup files yet. Backup files? My mind raced. Jessica, where is this woman now? That's the weird part. Uncle Pete, you know how he gets when he's had a few drinks. He started asking her questions about Marcus's childhood, stuff any real sister would know. She couldn't answer basic things like where he went to high school or what his middle name was. When she realized we were onto her, she just left. Fast. I was already reaching for the hotel phone to call Agent Rodriguez when Jessica continued. But Sarah, before she took off, I heard her on the phone in the parking lot. She was speaking Mandarin. I only caught bits because of my college classes, but I definitely heard her say something about the Portland accounts and Tuesday deadline. Tuesday? That's in 3 days. There's more. After she left, your cousin David did some Googling on his phone. There's no record of Marcus having any siblings. But there is a record of a business partnership between Marcus and someone named Li Wei Chen, no relation, just the same last name. And Li Wei Chen happens to be wanted by Interpol for international money laundering. My hands went cold. An international money laundering operation. That would explain why Marcus had been so confident about disappearing to Costa Rica, why he'd seemed almost relieved when the FBI arrested him instead of mysterious people his fake sister was apparently working with. Jessica, I need you to call Agent Rodriguez right now. Tell him about the woman, about the Tuesday deadline, about Li Wei Chen. Can you do that? Already dialing, she said, and I could hear her fingers flying across her phone screen. Sarah, there's something else. The hotel bar is still open, and some of Marcus's groomsmen are still here, getting really drunk and talking loudly about how they dodged a bullet tonight. What do you mean? They keep mentioning something called Phase 2 that was supposed to start Monday morning. And they're acting like Marcus getting arrested might have actually saved them from something worse. Phase 2. A Tuesday deadline. International money launderers. And Marcus's co-conspirators acting relieved that he was in federal custody instead of free to continue whatever they'd been planning. Sarah? Jessica's voice grew smaller. I'm starting to think your wedding day arrest wasn't the end of this thing. I think it was just the beginning. Before I could respond, the hotel room's landline phone rang. The front desk calling this late couldn't be good news. Ms. Mitchell? The desk clerk's voice was professionally neutral, but I caught an undercurrent of nervousness. I have a woman here in the lobby asking for your room number. She says she's your fiancé's sister and that it's a family emergency. The fake sister had found me. Tell her I'm not in, I said quickly to the desk clerk, my heart hammering. And don't give out my room number to anyone who isn't FBI. Of course, ma'am. Should I call security? Through the hotel room window, I could see the parking lot clearly. A black Mercedes sedan with tinted windows sat near the entrance, engine running. Even from 4 floors up, I could make out someone in the driver's seat, waiting. Yes, call security. And please transfer me to Agent Rodriguez immediately. He left instructions that all calls should go through him. But the line went dead before the clerk could respond. My cell phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, *room 412. We need to talk. Li Wei, *. She knew exactly which room I was in. I grabbed the hotel phone and dialed Agent Rodriguez's number directly, but it went straight to voicemail. My hand shook as I tried Agent Kim's cell, same result. Either they were both dealing with Vanessa's arrest, or something had gone very wrong at the Chen and Associates building. Another text, *, you have something that belongs to my organization. Marcus made promises he cannot keep from prison, *. I stared at the message, trying to decode what she meant. What could I possibly have that an international money laundering operation would want? Marcus had stolen from me, not the other way around. My phone rang, Jessica calling back. Sarah, I just talked to Agent Rodriguez. He's at the FBI building interrogating Vanessa, but he's sending Agent Kim to your hotel right now. Her voice was rushed, panicked. But there's a problem. Kim's at least 20 minutes away, and the fake sister just left the country club. She could be there any minute. She's already here, I said, moving away from the window. Jessica, she somehow knows my room number, and she's texting me about Marcus making promises to her organization. What kind of promises? Before I could answer, someone knocked on my door. 3 sharp raps, followed by a woman's voice, Ms. Mitchell, I know you're in there. We can do this the easy way or the difficult way. I pressed myself against the bathroom door, whispering into the phone. She's outside my room. Sarah, do not open that door. Hotel security should be. The knocking stopped. For 30 seconds, silence stretched through the hotel room like a held breath. Then I heard the distinct sound of an electronic keycard being swiped. The door opened. Ms. Mitchell. The woman who stepped into my room was elegant, professionally dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. She moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to being obeyed. I'm Li Wei. We have mutual concerns regarding Marcus Chen's business activities. Jessica, call 911, I whispered into the phone, but Li Wei was already crossing the room. That won't be necessary. She held up her hands, showing she wasn't armed. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here because Marcus owes my organization $1.2 million, and his arrest has created complications in our timeline. I don't have your money, I managed to say, still pressed against the bathroom door. No, but you have access to the Mitchell Foundation accounts. Marcus assured us that his marriage would provide liquidity for our Portland expansion. Li Wei's smile was cold. Unfortunately, his dramatic exit from your wedding has left us with a cash flow problem. The Mitchell Foundation. She wanted me to steal from my own father's charity to cover Marcus's debts to international criminals. The foundation is under FBI protection now. I couldn't access those accounts even if I wanted to. Ms. Mitchell, I think you misunderstand the nature of our relationship with Marcus. Li Wei pulled out her phone and showed me a photo that made my blood freeze. It was Agent Rodriguez, unconscious, zip-tied to a chair in what looked like a warehouse. A timestamp showed the photo had been taken 17 minutes ago. Phase 2 begins Monday morning, with or without Marcus. Your cooperation ensures that Agent Rodriguez remains healthy enough to testify at Marcus's trial. Li Wei's voice never changed tone, as if she were discussing the weather instead of kidnapping federal agents. The Mitchell Foundation will transfer $1.2 million to our Cayman accounts by Tuesday at noon. In return, you get your FBI friend back, and we disappear from your life forever. My phone, still connected to Jessica, buzzed with her frantic voice. Sarah? Sarah, what's happening? I can hear someone talking. Li Wei plucked the phone from my hand and ended the call. Now, she said pleasantly, shall we discuss the transfer procedures, or would you prefer to see more recent photos of Agent Rodriguez? The warehouse Li Wei brought me to smelled like motor oil and desperation. Agent Rodriguez was exactly where the photo had shown him, zip-tied to a metal chair, a nasty gash across his forehead but thankfully conscious. His eyes met mine as Li Wei pushed me through the door, and I caught his almost imperceptible head shake. Don't do anything stupid, it seemed to say. Ms. Mitchell, Li Wei gestured toward a folding table where a laptop sat open, banking websites already loaded on the screen. I've taken the liberty of preparing the transfer protocols. The Mitchell Foundation's primary account shows a balance of $847,000, unfortunately short of our requirements, but we can be flexible. Flexible how? I kept my voice steady, buying time while scanning the warehouse for exits, weapons, anything useful. Your personal investment accounts, the life insurance payout from your father's death, even your 401k if necessary. Li Wei's fingers danced across the laptop keyboard. Between all sources, you can cover our losses from Marcus's early retirement. Behind her, 2 men stood guard near the warehouse's main entrance. Both looked like they'd stepped out of a corporate boardroom, expensive suits, polished shoes, the kind of professional criminals who laundered money through legitimate businesses. No obvious weapons, but their positioning blocked the only exit I could see. The FBI will notice those transfers immediately, I said, stalling. Every account you mentioned is flagged as part of the investigation. Which is why we're routing everything through Marcus's established shell companies in the Cayman Islands. The same accounts he used for his previous thefts. Li Wei turned the laptop screen toward me. From the FBI's perspective, it will appear that Marcus had access to your financial information all along. Just another victim of his deception. Agent Rodriguez's eyes had found something behind me. His gaze kept flicking to a point over my left shoulder, then back to my face. I resisted the urge to turn around, but I caught a glimpse of movement in my peripheral vision. A shadow near what might have been a back exit. Marcus never had access to my personal accounts, I said, moving slightly to the left to block Li Wei's view of whatever Rodriguez had spotted. I kept everything separate. Ms. Mitchell, Marcus provided us with detailed records of your financial habits, your security questions, even photos of bank statements from your home office. Li Wei's patience was wearing thin. We know about the emergency fund you kept for your mother's medical expenses, the savings account you opened after your father's diagnosis, the automatic transfers you set up for the foundation's monthly operating costs. My stomach dropped. Marcus had photographed everything in my house, cataloged every aspect of my financial life like I was just another mark to be studied and exploited. The violation felt even worse than his theft. He turned my own home into a surveillance operation. You have 5 minutes to initiate the transfers, Li Wei continued, where Agent Rodriguez begins losing fingers. We have a very talented surgeon on retainer who can keep him conscious throughout the process. Sarah, don't, Rodriguez started to speak, but one of the suited guards calmly walked over and backhanded him across the face. Blood spattered onto the concrete floor. My phone, which Li Wei had returned after forcing me to text Jessica that I was fine and going to sleep, buzzed with an incoming call. The screen showed Agent Kim's number. Answer it, Li Wei instructed. Tell him you're at the hotel, everything's normal. Any deviation from that script and Agent Rodriguez loses something permanent. I swiped to answer, my heart hammering so loud I was sure Agent Kim would hear it through the phone. Hello? Sarah, thank God. I'm at the Hampton Inn, but the front desk says you're not answering your room. Are you okay? Behind Li Wei, the shadow I glimpsed earlier moved again. This time I caught a clearer view, someone in tactical gear, moving with practiced silence along the warehouse's back wall. I'm fine, I said into the phone, praying Agent Kim would catch something in my tone. Just tired after such a long day. The wedding was beautiful, everything went exactly according to plan. A pause. Agent Kim knew damn well my wedding had been a disaster, not beautiful. Sarah, are you sure you're okay? You sound strange. Li Wei was watching me intently, her hand moving towards something inside her jacket. Agent Rodriguez had gone completely still, his eyes now fixed on a point directly behind her. I'm perfect, I said, emphasizing the word while staring directly at Li Wei. Never been better. Tomorrow's going to be a great day for everyone involved. Sarah, Agent Kim's voice sharpened with concern, but Li Wei was already reaching for the phone. That's when the warehouse lights went out, and all hell broke loose. The warehouse plunged into complete darkness, and I hit the concrete floor hard as gunshots erupted around me. Someone, Agent Kim, I hoped, was shouting commands through a bullhorn, FBI. Nobody move. Li Wei's voice cut through the chaos, surprisingly calm. Kill the federal agent first, then the girl. I rolled behind a stack of wooden crates, my heart hammering as muzzle flashes lit up the warehouse like deadly fireworks. The zip tie securing Agent Rodriguez must have been cut because I could hear him moving, his voice urgent, Sarah. Back exit, 30 feet to your right. But I couldn't abandon him. Not when this was my fault, my stolen money that had created this nightmare. The laptop. Li Wei screamed over the gunfire. Secure the financial access codes. I crawled toward the folding table where her computer sat, thinking maybe I could delete whatever banking information she'd prepared. Instead, what I saw on the screen made my blood freeze. It wasn't just my accounts she'd been targeting. The laptop showed transfer authorizations for 17 different victims' recovery funds, money the FBI had managed to freeze and return to Marcus's victims. Li Wei had somehow gained access to the federal recovery program itself. Patricia Walsh's daughter's college fund, $230,000, ready to transfer. The Henderson Family Special Needs Trust, $180,000, one click away from disappearing. Every family Marcus had destroyed, about to be victimized again by his criminal partners. Agent Kim. I shouted into the darkness. She's got access to the federal recovery accounts. All the victims returned money. A flashlight beam swept across the warehouse, illuminating Li Wei pressed against a support pillar, gun drawn. Ms. Mitchell, step away from that computer or Agent Rodriguez dies right now. But Agent Rodriguez was no longer tied to his chair. In the strobing muzzle flashes, I caught glimpses of him moving tactically along the warehouse wall, apparently having retrieved a weapon from one of the downed guards. My phone, miraculously still in my hand, buzzed with a text from Jessica, *Sarah, your wedding is trending worldwide. #wedding justice has 2.3 million posts. People are demanding justice for all of Marcus's victims. 2.3 million posts. The entire world was watching this story, which meant Li Wei's organization couldn't simply make me disappear without massive international attention. Li Wei. I called out, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. You're trending on social media. Millions of people know about Marcus's partners now. Killing federal agents isn't going to fix your cash flow problem anymore. Social media posts don't pay our operational debts, she replied, but I caught uncertainty in her tone. Agent Kim's voice boomed through the bullhorn again, this warehouse is surrounded. Li Wei Chen, you're wanted by Interpol for financial crimes in 14 countries. Surrender now and we can discuss terms. Li Wei's laugh echoed off the concrete walls. Terms? Agent Kim, I have something better than terms. I have access to every penny the FBI recovered for Marcus's victims. One button press and 43 families lose everything again, permanently this time. She was right. Even if the FBI arrested her, if she transferred those recovery funds to untraceable offshore accounts, Marcus's victims would never see their money again. Patricia Walsh's daughters would lose their college funds twice. The Henderson family would lose their daughter's medical care money forever. I stared at the laptop screen, at the rows of victim accounts worth $2.8 million total, all ready to vanish with a single keystroke. Sarah. Agent Rodriguez's voice was closer now. Whatever you're thinking, don't do it. But I was already typing, my fingers flying across the keyboard in the darkness. Not to transfer the money to Li Wei's accounts, to transfer it somewhere else entirely. Somewhere even the FBI couldn't touch it. Instead of transferring the money to Li Wei's Cayman accounts, I was moving it to something Marcus had never known about, a secondary charitable foundation Dad had established in Mom's name, with security protocols that required physical presence at 3 different banks to access. Even if Li Wei killed me, the money would be locked away from everyone, including the FBI, until the courts could sort out proper restitution. What are you doing? Li Wei's voice cracked as she realized the laptop screen was showing different account numbers than the ones she'd programmed. Making sure you never get what you came for, I called back, hitting enter on the final transfer. $2.8 million, moved to an account that requires my mother's biometric scan, my signature, and a court order to access. The gunfire stopped abruptly. Even Li Wei's men seemed to realize that shooting me now would make their money permanently unreachable. You stupid girl, Li Wei snarled. You've just condemned every family Marcus stole from. That money will be tied up in legal proceedings for years. Better tied up in court than stolen by international criminals, I shot back, though my hands were shaking as the magnitude of what I'd just done hit me. I potentially delayed justice for 43 families, including Patricia Walsh's daughters who needed their college funds in 2 months. Agent Kim's voice cut through the darkness. Li Wei, you've got 30 seconds to surrender before we deploy flashbangs. Your financial leverage just disappeared. But Li Wei was already moving, and I could hear her barking orders in Mandarin to her remaining partners. The sound of boots on concrete suggested they were retreating toward the back of the warehouse. She's running. Agent Rodriguez shouted. Sarah, stay down. More gunshots erupted as tactical lights swept across the warehouse. I stayed pressed against the floor behind the crates, clutching the laptop that now showed a very different financial landscape than Li Wei had planned. Every victim account displayed the same status, transferred, Margaret Mitchell Foundation, security hold. My phone rang, Jessica again. Sarah, where the hell are you? Her voice was frantic. Agent Kim said you weren't at the hotel, and now there are reports of FBI raids happening across the city. Your mom is losing her mind with worry. I'm okay, I whispered, though bullets were still flying somewhere behind me. Jessica, I need you to do something important. Call my mom and tell her to get to First National Bank tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. She needs to bring her ID and be ready to sign documents for the foundation Dad set up in her name. What foundation? Sarah, you're scaring me. The one that just became the temporary custodian of $2.8 million in stolen money that needs to get back to Marcus's victims. I could hear Li Wei shouting orders somewhere near what sounded like a loading dock. And Jessica? Tell Mom to bring Aunt Linda as a witness. This has to be done exactly right or 43 families stay broke forever. Sarah. Agent Rodriguez's voice boomed across the warehouse. Li Wei's escaped, but we need you to stay exactly where you are. This building isn't secure yet. Through the tactical lights and settling dust, I could see the folding table where Li Wei's laptop sat abandoned, its screen still glowing with the transfer confirmations that had just complicated everyone's life exponentially. In trying to protect the victims' recovery funds from international criminals, I potentially created a legal nightmare that could delay their restitution for months. But as I stared at that screen, watching the security protocols engage on the Margaret Mitchell Foundation account, I realized something Li Wei hadn't counted on. Dad had designed those protocols specifically for situations like this, emergencies where large amounts of money needed protection from both criminals and bureaucracy. The account wasn't just locked. It was designed to distribute funds rapidly to verified recipients once the security holds were lifted. Which meant Patricia Walsh's daughters might just make their college deadlines after all. 6 months later, I stood in the Portland Federal Courthouse wearing a navy blue suit that cost considerably less than my wedding dress but felt infinitely more valuable. Today was the final restitution hearing, and every seat in the gallery was filled with families whose lives Marcus had tried to destroy. Patricia Walsh sat in the front row with her twin daughters, both wearing Oregon State University sweatshirts. They'd started classes on schedule after all. The Margaret Mitchell Foundation's emergency protocols had released their college funds within 72 hours of my warehouse laptop adventure. Emma Walsh caught my eye and smiled, mouthing thank you for probably the 100th time since August. Judge Martinez reviewed the final settlement documents with meticulous care. The court finds that all $8.2 million in recovered assets have been successfully distributed to verified victims. The Margaret Mitchell Foundation's temporary custodianship prevented additional theft attempts and expedited restitution by an estimated 14 months. Marcus sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, flanked by 2 public defenders who'd drawn the impossible task of defending a man whose crimes had been recorded in excruciating detail. He looked smaller somehow, diminished without his expensive suits and confident smile. When our eyes met across the courtroom, I felt nothing but pity for the hollow person he'd always been underneath the performance. Marcus Chen, you are hereby sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for wire fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Vanessa Torres, 8 years. Li Wei Chen, extradited to face charges in 12 countries. Judge Martinez's gavel echoed with finality. This court is adjourned. As the defendants were led away, Patricia Walsh approached me in the courthouse hallway. Sarah, I owe you another apology. When I called you that first night, I was so angry, so desperate. I said things. You said exactly what needed to be said, I interrupted. You reminded me that this wasn't about my pride or my broken engagement. It was about justice for real families. She hugged me tightly. Emma got into pre-med. Sophie's majoring in forensic accounting, says she wants to catch thieves like Marcus. You didn't just save their college funds. You saved their futures. Outside the courthouse, Agent Rodriguez waited by his black SUV. The scar above his left eyebrow was barely visible now, but he still unconsciously touched it when he was thinking hard about something. So, he said as I approached, ready to go back to your old life? I laughed, pulling out my phone to check the Mitchell Foundation's account balance, $12.4 million and growing, thanks to donations from people worldwide who'd followed the hashtag Wedding Justice story. What old life? I quit marketing 3 months ago, remember? Right. Sarah Mitchell, full-time philanthropist and part-time FBI consultant. Rodriguez shook his head admiringly. Your father would be proud. I hope so. I looked back at the courthouse where Marcus had just learned his fate. You know what the strangest part is? I actually am grateful to him now. For nearly getting you killed by international money launderers? For showing me who I really am when everything gets stripped away. I straightened my shoulders, feeling the weight of purpose that had replaced the weight of a failed relationship. Marcus thought he was stealing my future. Instead, he gave me the chance to build something better. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica, * wedding venue called. They have an opening next June if you want to try again. I promised to run better background checks on the next room. *. I typed back, * thanks, but I'm busy building an empire. Maybe in a few years. *. Walking away from that courthouse, I realized Marcus had been right about one thing, leaving me at the altar really had been the best moment of my life. I just wasn't the one who'd planned it that way.